of course, now you have this NIL factor kind of floating out there. And that's kind of one of the interesting elements because since the last time Tennessee had a huge recruiting weekend like this, there has been this new set of NCAA guidelines with the NIL stuff that are sort of threatening that if a collective talks to players before they commit or are signed, that could be an NCAA violation if collectives are considered donors. It's like, or considered boosters. I hope that Tennessee literally doesn't consider that at all and just does what they're gonna do. Be absolutely shameless. That's what I always say. I don't care what you got to do. Get these guys in orange and white. And so hopefully that's not a factor, but it is interesting because that the NCAA hadn't come down with those guidelines yet when that happened, and Tennessee has obviously been probably the most shameless with all of this so far with the NIL stuff of just not only setting these kids up with deals, but then going and talking about it publicly and sort of putting it out there in a way that's like, maybe this is who got this deal, but we're not actually going to say, but it probably was, and it's all a PR move. All of that is a PR move to get Tennessee on the radar, to get Tennessee talked about. And I think it's been masterful so far. I hope that they continue to do it and that it's not, they don't get cautious. Be greedy. Do everything. Throw everything in the kitchen sink at these kids if you have to, because this is how you rebuild a program. All you have to do is look down I-75 at the University of Georgia. It's all that they did since Smart showed up was just go and land a helicopter in a kid's front yard and probably give him a briefcase full of money. Or a McDonald's bag or whatever they had to do, and do that. I don't care. Whatever it is that you have to do, but just a weekend like this, you look at this set of players, you get a few of these really high profile guys. It's program changing. And NICO's going to be there to sell the program. And so that dude, hopefully it can change the wins for some of these guys.
I think people really don't understand just how important NICO is to this program. And he is worth, I don't care if he just ends up playing like a 3-star quarterback for his 4 years. He's going to end up being worth every dime that's being spent on him, allegedly. Just because of the recruiting that he's doing. I mean, he is working almost every single interview you read with a major 4 or 5-star recruit, they mention NICO. Like, he's on the phone with me. He's texting me. I mean, he's working these guys to come to Tennessee. I mean, he's been like a 11th coach that can recruit for Tennessee without the restrictions. I mean, he can call guys whenever he wants to, in the middle of the night in some cases that we've seen some recruits talk about. As far as the NIL stuff and the guidelines, I was kind of concerned about that when that stuff kind of first came down. Like, hey, is this going to change Tennessee's approach because what they're doing is really working? I don't think it is. And for a lot of the reasons we talked about last week, because the NCAA just really can't do a lot. It's just a lot of a talk from them kind of trying to change the narrative in the media right now that they don't have any control over the situation. And combine that with what Danny White said in an interview with VolQuest this week, where he was asked a little bit about the NCAA investigation and some of the NIL stuff. And he said, I don't think there's a better example of an institution trying to do that, following the rules and having accountability and doing everything the right way than the University of Tennessee. I mean, that tells me that Danny White I mean, you're a lot of media outlets pretty much all but saying you've paid, or your collective associated with the university has paid this recruit $8 million to commit. People alluding to it, Chris Lowe from ESPN, like trying to throw the word allegedly in there, but still talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. And you say, hey, we're following the rules. That tells me they're pretty confident in what they're doing and how they're handling this in light of a massive NCAA investigation that almost crippled the program. I think that should give Tennessee fans some confidence, because Danny White, I mean, he's a professional. He's the best athletic director that Tennessee's had in the last decade. Absolutely. And the proof is in the results that we're already seeing just a year and a half into his tenure. For him to say that, I think should give fans a lot of confidence that, hey, this is going to be okay. Tennessee's not going to slow down in the NIL game. They're full speed ahead with it.
Yeah, he's perfectly set up with his general stature among athletic administrators. I mean, he is athletic administration royalty,
Yeah.
and there's some factors like that. And then he's been on the bleeding edge of just kind of everything in college athletics. He led such an emergent out of nowhere program at UCF where during his time there, they just blew up kind of on the national scene, specifically as a football school. Um, and I think he, I guess visionary is the right word. It kind of seems like he is just out there kind of leading the pack with this stuff. And what you have to hope, that much. He is that visionary. What you have to hope is that in conjunction with that, he's wrapping everything up tight and you got to think the way that they've handled this NCAA investigation, which I also think they've done it in a really smart way, where he just was kind of thrown into the fire with it and had to figure it out. I think he will be smart about that. And it's one of those things you don't know exactly what's going on behind the scenes, but do you really want to know how the sausage is made? Probably not. And so
Well,
if
I think
I go ahead.
something that people don't really think about with Danny White is he was at Ole Miss for 4 years, 3 or 4 years, 5 years as an associate athletic director. When Houston Nutt was there, when they hired Hugh Freeze, he's been around some shady things that, I mean, he understands what works, what doesn't work. This isn't like his first foray into the SEC. Like, he understands this world really well. He's experienced it firsthand. So I think all that experience from that, and then combining it with this new world where some of these things are legal and you can get around it more publicly, I think that experience is very beneficial to him and has been a big reason why he's been able to kind of get ahead with this.
Absolutely. I think if you do it right, this landscape is so much more ripe for the picking to take advantage of, because you don't have to do it in the shade of darkness all the time now. You can do these things above board. And really, this leads us into that conversation with Jimbo and Saban. But to keep it on Tennessee, like Saban always has used the secrecy to his advantage, because all he really had to say is, we got money like everybody else, and you're going to get to come here and play for a national championship. But now all of that is above board, and these kids can see, like, this kid is making exceptional money at Tennessee, and that information doesn't have to travel through the back channels and get talked about under the table. No, Tennessee can come out in an article in the Athletic and go like, hello, somebody, here's what we paid this kid, come on down, and so now Saban doesn't have that full advantage over over everything being under the table. And I, this is, if you play your cards right, is the this is the perfect setup for Tennessee to take advantage of. Seems like they're doing it so far. I think this is one of the big pivotal weekends to show that Tennessee is fully taking advantage of it.